Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome into the Auburn Pregame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli alongside John Talty, filling in for Matt Scalisi today. John, it's Saturday. It feels like fall outside. It's already week 11 of the college football season. Auburn kicks off in about 90 minutes from now against Mississippi State at home. Going to be a good one. You never know what to expect with this Tigers team after two impressive outings, followed by what I would just sum up as a disappointing game against Texas A&M last week.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like this Auburn team, when you can say it in past years too, like it just feels like a roller coaster at times, and that's kind of, I think, what this season has been. You have some downs at Georgia State game, like what is happening, and then come back and they have some big wins like LSU, and then, now we have kind of a down moment again. So I think we're all very curious to see what Auburn team shows up today, because it's not an easy game. Mississippi State's had their kind of roller coaster as well. So I think both of these teams, you don't necessarily know what to expect week to week, which, probably frustrating for fans, fun for, in terms of you get some weird results. But I think that, there's a lot to kind of work through and wonder about with this game, just because, you just don't really know what to expect with this Auburn team.
Let's look back briefly at this Auburn loss last week against A&M. 20-3 was the final score. A little bit of good and a little bit of bad. Okay, well, a lot of bad, but some good as well. Auburn scores 3 points, but they also held the Aggies out of the end zone. I mean, yes, they put up 20, but the scoop and score was one of them, and then followed by multiple field goals. It felt as though this Auburn defense really did what it needed to do on the road in a tough environment in College Station at Kyle Field, but Bo Nix and company really couldn't get a lot going, unfortunately, against this Aggies team.
Yeah, and I think the defense has improved a lot this year under, first-year defensive coordinator Derek Mason. I think earlier in the season there were questions. I think, again, that Georgia State game just looked like I just couldn't stop them, and it was kind of amazing what's happening here. There's enough talent on that defense to, do some big things, and I think we're starting to see that. The defense did what they needed to do to win that game. Unfortunately, Bo Nix and that offense did not do what they needed to do. They didn't provide any support to the defense. And so, I think that, this is a Texas A&M team that put up a lot of points and beat Alabama. And so Auburn's defense played much better than Alabama's defense did in that game. And so, but it's just the questions that we've had. There's, a tried and true stat about, Bo Nix's road struggles. And, outside of that kind of LSU win earlier this year, he typically does not play very well on the road. And I think we saw that again in that game. And that's just, what can hold this team back, and unfortunately has held this team back, I think, this year, is that the offense just, hasn't been able to deliver on the road when they really needed it to. And you can say the same thing about that Penn State loss.
Sure. Appreciate all the comments for those just tuning in. This is the Auburn Pregame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli alongside John Talty. We are breaking down the Tigers game. Auburn hosts Mississippi State at 11 a.m. on the Plains. It'll be a beautiful day for some football. For those that can't go, obviously just hanging out at home, you get to watch a game and then just chill for the rest of your Saturday. So it should be a good one. Thanks so much for all your comments. We appreciate it, guys. When you look at what's at stake in this game, John, not nearly as much that was at stake last week, when it felt as though Auburn really, going into last week's game, still had an outside shot at making the college football playoff. I'm not saying that it was going to happen. There was still a chance looming if they had won the SEC title. You had to put Auburn in. It seems as though those chances are not very good. At this point, what is this team playing for? You think about the positive things that have happened in Brian Harsin's first year on the Plains. It seems as though not necessarily all is lost. A lot of folks get frustrated. It's kind of playoffs or bust nowadays when it comes to the college football world, the college football landscape, but there's still a lot to play for in these last few weeks.
Yeah, there's the obvious, pride and things like that. That's obviously what teams play for. But I think big picture-wise, I think you're playing for the future. And what I mean by that is, if you lose a game like this to Mississippi State and then you lose potentially to Alabama in the Iron Bowl, we start thinking about the season differently. Even though there's some nice moments, you're thinking, not a great year for Brian Harsin. And then, you kind of have all these things crop up, and you have, again, some boosters who didn't want him in the first place, and then they're getting angry. And, it can kind of change the whole way that we view this season, just these couple of games that are left. And within that, it's, as Simone, in the SEC, it's all about recruiting. And so I think Harsin, to this point does not have, the best recruiting class in the SEC. It's actually one of the lower ranked ones. And I think they're going to need some recruiting momentum down the stretch. And I think you beat Mississippi State, you beat South Carolina next week, you either beat Alabama or play them tough. You can build off of that. You can sell that to recruits. Flip side, you lose, and it's going to be something that's going to be used against you in recruiting. So I think that, I don't, like you said, it is kind of playoffs or bust, especially in this state. And, it's probably unfair because there's still a lot of, they can still go to a good bowl game and all that. But again, I think big picture wise, it's all about the future. And I think that they need wins like today to be able to build off that and to really build something sustainable moving forward for Brian Harsin.
Yeah. And looking at today's game, Mississippi State, a very middle of the pack team, 5-4 overall, 3-3 in the SEC. Mike Leach has really tried to get his style going in the SEC. And at moments it felt as though, okay, this looks brilliant. And at moments it's felt like, okay, this is not going to work out. This is not going to pan out. Regardless, the pass happy offense is going to test this Auburn secondary. Some guys who have been in and out of the lineup because of injury. But regardless, it seems as though this will pose some sort of test for Auburn at home today.
Absolutely. And I think it's always a good opportunity. I think it's always interesting to see what, opposing teams do, because I don't think what Mike Leach and his team, does is necessarily that surprising. I think you kind of know to some extent what's to come. And so you either have to build the right game plan and make the adjustments, or, like, again, I can think back to last year and just how utterly embarrassed LSU, was against that Mississippi State team. And basically it was kind of the downfall of Bo Pelini because he just couldn't do anything with what I think was, not the most complicated thing to stop. So I think it's a good test for Derek Mason. Do they have the guys in the spots that they need to be? Are they going to, are they going to tackle the way they need to? Are they going to not have busted coverages? All those kind of simple things that you need to play well. And I think they've been doing that, but there's just, you're going to be facing, a lot of passing. They're going to try to put it on you. And just on you to try to stop it. And so I think the defense will be able to, slow them down to some extent, but they're going to put up some points. Just can you get the stops when you need them?
Yeah. Johnny brings such an interesting perspective covering, college football really just in a national sense, understanding what things are like all throughout the country. Want to get your take on Bo Nix and what he provides this team, the good, the bad, the ugly a little bit. There have been moments of brilliance. There have been moments of bad. There have been lots of moments of frustration. Fans are always in the comments unhappy with a lot of decision-making. And then sometimes it feels as though, okay, without Bo Nix, this game would have been pulled out, So what is the vibe? What is it that Bo Nix can bring to this program, not only in the next few weeks, but down the road? Is this it? Is this the last that we're going to see of Bo Nix, in Auburn jersey, in the starting role at Auburn? Like, what does the future look like? How does he fit in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big question. I think it's been, I think you could say for the last few years, I think Bo Nix has probably been the biggest question with this team and, what his play can mean for their ceiling and their floor. And so I think in part, Gus Malzahn, I think, got fired partly because, Bo Nix didn't develop the way people expected him to. And I think when Brian Harsin got hired and he hired Mike Bobo as his offensive coordinator, I think that was one of the biggest tests. And I think that he has, improved this year. I think you've seen moments from him where you could tell, all right, like they are clearly doing something right with him. And it felt like he turned a corner, in that LSU game after the struggles in Georgia State. They're like, all right, we're seeing a better version of Bo Nix. Unfortunately, I think against Texas A&M, he regressed. And so I think that ultimately what he is, he's a limited quarterback. I think he's very athletic. I think he can do some fun things. I think when he's at his best, it kind of has that just backyard feel of I'm just going to make something happen out of nothing. I think he struggles more in kind of the structure and getting into a rhythm. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Tim Tebow in that there's that athleticism, but he's not the greatest passer. And I don't know necessarily there's anything that can be done to fix that. So, to answer your kind of big picture question, what does it mean moving forward? I think that, they brought in TJ Finley to push him. I think that we saw it happen and then they went with Bo. I think this offseason, there'll be more of that push. It's, you're going to have to earn it. And if he can't continue to improve, then I could see potentially situation in which whether it's Finley or they bring in a transfer quarterback to, to do something if he can't deliver the way they want him to.
Yeah. When it comes to, thank you for your take on that. I know it's a big question. It's a loaded question. I put you on the spot there a little bit, John, but you can handle it. I mean, you know what you're talking
Happy
about.
to do it.
When it comes to shining stars for Auburn, Tank Bigsby, the reigning freshman SEC Player of the Year, has had a big year. 735 yards total on 140 carries and 7 touchdowns. When Auburn has struggled, really when Auburn has lost, Tank Bigsby has been contained. When Auburn plays well, Tank is running the way that we can see Tank run. What does his future look like? What does his stock look like for the Tigers moving forward in this game, tonight or today, and now less than 90 minutes, and in the seasons to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If you backtrack to when Gus was fired, I think there were a lot of rumors about Tank potentially leaving, and I think one of the reasons why running backs coach Cadillac Williams was retained was in part because of his connection to Tank. I do think there will be more rumors, I think, in this offseason about what Tank's future is and whether that, will be with Auburn. And, those are questions that can be answered after the season. But I think those are going to crank up again, just from some of the things that I've heard. But I think, ultimately, and like in this game and moving forward, I do think he's the best offensive player they have. And they have to find ways to, to get him going because they're just, like you said, such a better team when he's effective.
Yeah.
Again, I think the challenge, like we were just saying, is like if teams don't respect Bo's ability to beat you, it's a lot easier to load the box and stop Tank. And I think we've seen some teams do that. Like, all right, well, I'm not worried about Bo beating me over the top, so I'll just keep bringing defenders down. And it makes it very hard for Tank to do anything. And so, in part, Bo's got to play better to allow Tank to have the room to do what he needs to do. And that's, it's one of the challenges. And, I think they'll be able to do better against this Mississippi State defense is not, some world beater. I think they'll be able to play much better in this game than they did against Texas A&M. But against better teams, that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah. So Auburn today, a 4-point favorite over Mississippi State at home. I kind of thought that number might be a little bit bigger, but hey, you never know with this Mississippi State team, and you certainly never know with this Auburn team. John, what is it going to take to get it done against a Mississippi State program where, they can put some big numbers up on you pretty quickly, or, you shut them down and it seems as though Mississippi State likes to fold like a cheap tent and be done sometime in the first half?
Yeah, and I think we've also, Mike Leach, I think, made some pretty strong comments about, their special teams play. So I think, if you can try to force them into field goals and not giving up those touchdowns, you can kind of, slow them down once they get in the red zone. I think they've shown that they're not the greatest field goal kicking team. And so you can steal some points basically back that way. So, I think this Auburn team, I think a lot of times it comes back to the same things. Like, are we going to get a good version of Bo? Like you said, what is Tank going to do defense wise? Like, can they hold up and not give up a bunch of easy points? Those are, I think, the kind of the basics of this team. I do think the defense is going to play pretty well. I think they're going to build off of what they did against Texas A&M. I think that Will Rogers is a better quarterback than, Zach Calzada was. So I think it'll be a bigger test, but I do think that they'll be up for it. I just think can Bo do enough to win? I think he'll be able to, but that's the question I have is just, can he come back from what was not a good effort, last week against Texas A&M?
So Auburn against Mississippi State on the Plains, 11 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Around the rest of the SEC, Alabama also at 11 o'clock today, hosting New Mexico State. The Tide are a 50-point favorite in that game. Florida hosts Samford, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Missouri. The one you've been looking forward to, John, we've talked about this morning already, is A&M and Ole Miss, a night game in Oxford. What about that game are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a great kind of offense versus defense battle, and that we have this, high-powered Ole Miss offense led by, Matt Corral against this Texas A&M defense that, I think ranks number 3 in total defense right now in the country. Has done a really great job. We saw it against Auburn last week. They kind of get overlooked a little bit just because of Georgia's historic defensive run this year. But Texas A&M is just a slight notch below them in terms of what they've done. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Lane Train and offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby are able to kind of dial up. I think it's going to be fun, and they've got game day there. I think it's going to be a pretty wild atmosphere. I think people in the Grove are going to have a good time before that one. So it'll be a fun atmosphere, and I think it'll just be fun to see what those kind of smart coaches do against each other.
No doubt. Looking forward to that. And obviously this one here as Auburn Tigers host Mississippi State kickoff set for 11 o'clock, just over an hour away. Y'all get some coffee. Y'all get some breakfast. Hang out. Enjoy this one. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thanks so much for tuning into the Auburn Pregame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. For John Talty, I'm Simone Eli. We will see y'all in the postgame. Have a good one.